Hey guys, I'm Props, and today I'm making Kong's axe from Godzilla vs. Kong. This video is actually a collaboration with Propex Makes. He's also making this axe, so you guys should go check out his video on that. Now on to the build. So the first thing you're going to want to do is cut out the basic shape of the axe part, which is actually part of a Godzilla spine. I just cut out this out of some thin cardboard and then went through and cut out a little area so that I could put in some LEDs as well as some pieces of paper to diffuse it. I did go through and cover all of the edges with this with some masking tape like I did for my dragon bone sword, and this just helps curve the edges over, forcing the cardboard into a more rounded look and to give it kind of the bladed edge that the axe has. I then went through and cut out the handle shape for the whole bone part that makes up most of the shaft of the axe, and I just cut 4 or 5 of these out of cardboard and then gradually decreased the width of them to give it kind of a sloped look. I also glued in a wooden rod all the way down the length of the shaft just to give it some structure and stability, and I wouldn't not put something down the middle of this. It doesn't have to be a wooden rod or anything, but just something to give it some support. That way it doesn't flop around when you swing it. I then went through and glued together all of these parts and then wrapped the whole thing in masking tape, leaving a little space so that I could slot in the axe blade. I just used a lot of masking tape, making sure to round all of the edges and make sure that there wasn't any pieces sticking up. To make the axe blade glow, I just glued in some LEDs, which I hooked up to some batteries, and I just glued in some polystyrene foam to diffuse the lights for those around them. And then I went through and glued together the axe to the handle part, just cutting a little space out so I could fit in a battery pack. And then I went through and wrapped some string, various sizes of it, around the blade and the connection point, just to give it that kind of bony wooden look that it has. And then I went through and applied some spackle over the whole thing. Now this is why the wooden rods were so important, because they help structure the whole thing and make sure that the spackle doesn't crack when it flexes, which if you don't have the rod it will flex. And then I went through and sanded it with a foam sanding sponge. This just helps get into all the recessed areas and it makes sure you don't sand too much off, since it flexes a little bit into all the grooves and everything. If you accidentally sand into the tape, make sure to cover that up because it doesn't stick with paint very well, hence it's packing tape or masking tape. I then went through and painted the axe blade black, masking off the blue areas, and then I painted the handle brown. You don't really have to mask the axe blade off as long as you're careful putting on the brown paint. I then went through and did some touch-up work on the glowing areas, just where the plaster didn't get painted over. And then I went through and did some dry brushing over the pommel just to give it that white bony look that it has. And then I did some dry brushing over the whole thing with some gray paint just to bring out all of the high areas. And then I went through and did a black wash using some gloss black paint, which I watered down. And this just helps give it some depth and knock down some of the highlights, which I did. And overall, I'm really happy with how this turned out. I mean, the blue glowing pieces look really nice on this. They could have faded a little out more towards the edges like they do in the movie, but I couldn't figure out a way to get that done. I'm really pleased with how this turned out. I mean, it's pretty scaled to like if Godzilla was the size of a human, and I think it turned out pretty good. If you guys don't mind supporting me through Patreon so that I can continue to make cool builds like this, and so that you guys can get some behind the scenes access as well as like prop building stuff, be sure to do that. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys don't mind liking and subscribing, please do. Let me know what builds you guys want me to build, and I'll try to get to them. See you guys next vid. Bye.